Ohio State has hired their new offensive coordinator, and it's an experienced young play caller who served as an NFL head coach. It's Arthur Smith of the Pittsburgh, well, formerly of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Arthur Smith has been with the Steelers for the past 2 seasons. He also served as the Atlanta Falcons head coach for 3 seasons. I believe he went 21-30. I forgot to write that record down. While he was there as a head coach, he was also the Tennessee offensive coordinator for 2019 and 2020 there as well. He worked his way up in the NFL. He started off as actually as a defensive assistant at Ole Miss, got his way into the Tennessee Titans as a defensive analyst. And then I believe he became an offensive line assistant coach, worked his way up from there, eventually became the offensive coordinator. And after 2 years there, became the Atlanta Falcons head coach. Did not go so well for him there as the head coach, as he got fired and then went on over to the Steelers. I love this hire for Ohio State. I know there's going to be a lot of people that say, well, get ready to learn, run, what was it, like run, pass, punt, or something like that. And while I do understand the criticisms of Arthur Smith, I also think that people need to understand that the schematic structure of, coordinators and stuff like that in the NFL is 10 times higher than what you get from most, not all, but most coordinators in college football. And so even the worst of the worst coordinators in the NFL, especially play calling coordinators in the NFL, is 10 times better than most of the coordinators in college football. And the reason why I say that is to help people understand, the same thing with like, what if like last year, what if Ohio State played the Browns? Well, okay, well, this happened, that happened. No, the Browns would kill them. Right. Last year, Ohio State was the national champions. The Browns were one of the worst teams. I think that was last year, one of the worst teams in the league. And, they would still kill them because it's the Browns. They're an NFL team. They have NFL talent all littered all over that roster. And even though Ohio State had the NFL talent on their roster, they still were not nearly good enough to be able to do that. Same thing in this situation, to where coordinators live on football and do crazy things with it when they're at the NFL level. And for them to bring somebody like that to Ohio State is a huge thing for them. Ohio State on FanDuel, they had plus 650 odds to win the title. That is tied with first with Notre Dame. And my question is, will it go up, right? Will it go up after a hire like this? Because if you're number one in national title odds tied with somebody else at plus 650, then you hire your offensive coordinator, would that possibly go up? I think it'd be interesting if it did happen. I don't know if the odds are going to move off of that, but I think it would be interesting if that happened. Here's my 5 reasons why I like the hire of Arthur Smith to Ohio State. Number 1, Arthur Smith is a young but veteran NFL coordinator who Ryan Day won't need to babysit. Now, Ryan Day wants to be the CEO of the team. If you're an Ohio State fan, you've heard that term before. When Ryan Day was truly the CEO of the team, that's when they won the national championship. Chip Kelly on staff and that whole situation, how that worked out. Jim Knowles as the defensive coordinator. Ryan Day did a fantastic job that season, and he trusted his staff that he had with him. Ohio State had, and I'm not trying to disparage his coach by saying this, but it's just true. Ohio State had its worst offensive showings of Day's career when Hartline was the offensive coordinator. Hartline was the offensive coordinator this past season, and while it wasn't bad, it still was some of the worst of Day's career at Ohio State. He was also the offensive coordinator 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, when Kyle McCord was the quarterback then, and really he wasn't calling plays then, and there were questions about if Hartline was calling plays this season very much either. The run game suffered this season, and on top of that, you also had a quarterback that was not a natural runner, and that put a damper on things as well. So it's clear that Ryan Day, if he wants to be a national championship winning head coach, he can't continue to bring guys up who are offensive coordinators for their first year. I understand why he did it for Brian Hartline. If there was anybody that was going to be able to do it, it was going to be Brian Hartline. And Brian Hartline didn't fail this season. Brian Hartline did a good job. It wasn't the best offense we've ever seen under Ryan Day, but he was also a first-time offensive coordinator, and that's what you're going to get. And Ryan Day probably had to devote some more time to working with him on that. Point number 2 is that Arthur Smith is known as a run-focused guy, which is why I think he was the choice over somebody like Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy was the other NFL guy that was kind of being talked about here, but Arthur Smith was the one that they went with. And Arthur Smith is he's a guy that comes from the Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur kind of coaching, not coaching tree, but kind of like the coaching schematics there and that whole thing. So Day is bringing in a veteran offensive coordinator who specializes in the running game. And if you know anything about Ohio State last season, you know that the running game was not its best. Day's pass offense is Shanahan based. And so you're going to find common ground between this run offense of Arthur Smith and this passing offense of Ryan Day that could merge and be something very, very interesting. For Ohio State's offense next season, you're going to expect a whole lot more of kind of an NFL style, a whole lot more of Julian Sayin under center, I think. And then I think you're going to see multiple tight end looks, not necessarily like a bunch of tight ends, but just different looks about where you see the tight end in there and how the tight ends operate. One thing that Arthur Smith did a lot of with the Steelers was he ran a lot of under center RPOs, which facilitate effective rushing without relying on your quarterback's mobility. And this addresses a huge need for Ohio State next season. And it also addresses something that Ryan Day doesn't like to do, which he doesn't like to have his quarterback run. Well, if you watch the playoffs this season, every single one of those quarterbacks ran the ball, maybe not super well, but all of them did it in situations when they needed to. And while, yes, you can't completely get rid of the run game for the quarterback, you can minimize it by going with somebody who is an under center RPO type of guy. Versus Miami, Ohio State actually had a really good rushing success rate of 68%, which is crazy good. Like above average is like 50% or better. The problem is that they got away from the rushing for a multitude of reasons, but they did get away from the rushing. And I think if you have a guy who is more run focused like Arthur Smith, I don't think you get away from the rushing as quickly. Ryan Day, as a play caller, has been known to get away from the rushing too quickly, the run game, running the ball too much, too quickly. And I think you saw that against Miami. And it was one of the reasons why Ohio State did not have the most success in that game. Bringing in a guy who does have a run focus like Arthur Smith, I think will combat that. And also when it's somebody who has the respect of Ryan Day, an NFL guy, I think that's going to combat it as well. Number 3, Arthur Smith is not some NFL reject or anything like that. He's a former NFL head coach who is being sought after by other NFL teams as well. There are reports out there that he was still being considered for the Eagles and the Titans offensive coordinator. Smith spent the last 2 seasons with the Steelers under Mike Tomlin. Before that, he was a head coach with the Falcons, and before that, he was offensive coordinator with the Titans. Get this. Go back and look at their careers. Arthur Smith, Matt Patricia, neither of them have ever been fired as a coordinator. Now, fired as a head coach, sure, they both have. But fired as a coordinator, neither of them have ever been fired as a coordinator. I guess you could talk about like the weird offensive coordinator and thing and stuff like that Matt Patricia did. But in reality, neither of them have been fired as a coordinator, which is huge and I think speaks a lot to their ability and who they are. This season, actually, the Steelers ranked 15th in the NFL and averaging 22 points per game with one of the worst groupings of offensive talent in the entire league. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, JR, everybody has talent in the NFL and everything else. Right. But you look at that team and what they had on offense, they quite simply did not have enough to really compete in the NFL at a championship level. All right. Aaron Rodgers is a fantastic talent, and he's one of the best quarterbacks that I've ever seen play the game of football. However, he's also very late in his career. He's also somebody that is slowing down quite a bit. And he's also somebody that if you watch this season, it's just evident. He's getting too old for the game, unfortunately. Still a very good quarterback, but still too old for the game. And he did not have enough weapons around him. Even the run game suffered from not enough weapons and everything else. But in Columbus, Smith will have one of the top returning offensive trios in the country with Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Smith, and Bo Jackson. And that is going to be an incredible trio between those 3 guys. And if Arthur Smith is going to go from having one of the worst trios in all of the NFL, or not one of the worst trios, one of the worst groups of offensive weapons in the NFL to having possibly the best trio of offensive weapons in college football. And that's going to be a really exciting thing. Number 4, is that he will be the sole offensive coordinator with no recruiting or positional responsibilities, and that does continue to pertain to the NFL model. Smith will have similar responsibilities to Matt Patricia, but coaching the offense only. He won't have any recruiting responsibilities or anything like that. You do see Matt Patricia going on the road and recruiting, but this will give Arthur Smith complete control over only coaching the offense. He doesn't have to mess with recruiting, and that would give him an even more opportunity to connect with these players, understand where they're coming from, what plays do you like, what plays do you don't like, and meeting in different rooms, and ultimately being the actual head coach of the offense. That's what Chip Kelly was. That was one of the things that was most valuable about Chip Kelly, and I think will be very valuable about somebody like Arthur Smith as well. I think this is a move that you're going to see more schools do, because right now Ohio State has 10 countable coaches. If you don't like, there is no limit on coaches in college football nowadays, but you do have a limit on how many of them can recruit. You still can only have 10 coaches recruiting. Right now, Ohio State has that filled, which is why some people thought, well, maybe they'll go with an internal hire, but they did not end up doing that. And I think you're going to see this happen more often. I think you're going to see more teams hire more positional coaches to do this recruiting stuff, and more teams go with coordinators that maybe don't have to do this. In fact, I've even heard some rumblings that you might get like an edge rushing or like an outside linebackers coach or something like that for Ohio State this offseason. If that does happen, then that would probably leave Matt Patricia as no longer being a recruiter on the staff. Again, I don't know if that's true or not. That's just something I've heard. If it does happen, I think you would really see Ohio State going all in on this. Coordinators are just NFL guys who kind of scheme up plays type of stuff and work with the team, which I would like that idea. I don't think it'd be bad. My last one, number 5, Ohio State just unlocked a ton of FedEx money to play with in the NIL portal world, because Arthur Smith's dad is the founder of FedEx, Fred Smith. All right, now RIP Fred Smith. I believe he's passed away, but does this mean that Arthur Smith can deliver? Get it? FedEx, he can deliver? Okay, all right, I get it. Bad joke. This is mostly a joke. I mean, I don't think FedEx is actually going to be doing a whole bunch of NIL, but his brother is a high position person at FedEx still. So who knows? Maybe Arthur goes to FedEx and says, "Hey, I need a left tackle," and you see something work out where all of a sudden a left tackle goes into the portal, and then he makes his way on over to Ohio State. I'm kidding, of course, but honestly, like, who knows? In the world of college football today, where, like I said, everybody tampers, it's just some teams are better at it than others. It is what it is. So I do think that Arthur Smith's story is interesting. Like, I do think when you have a dad like Fred Smith who had it all, like, he's obviously very rich, very wealthy, there could be a temptation for Arthur Smith just to get a cushy job, at FedEx from his dad or something like that. But that's not what he did. Arthur Smith, like, he chose to go the coaching route, and the coaching route kind of sucks, especially at the time when he went into it, late 2000s type of stuff. 2000, I think he started in 2007 or 2008 as the North Carolina GA was his first coaching job. But to kind of work your way up, to go to Ole Miss and then go to the Titans and be in, the doldrums of the NFL coaching staff by being an assistant there, starting on defense, working your way on over to offense, eventually becoming an offensive coordinator there. Like, to me, it does show a whole lot of grit. It does show a whole lot of toughness and workability to be able to go and do that. So believe in that or not, if you do, but I think it speaks to something about Arthur Smith, and I think this is going to be a good hire for Ohio State. You'll get the jokes of all this other stuff, but I would just remind people, you got a lot of those same jokes with Matt Patricia. And Matt Patricia just had statistically the number 1 defense in the nation this season. You can say that's because of the schedule all you want, but at the end of the day, you watch that defense and it was really impressive. I'm not saying Arthur Smith's going to have number 1 offense in the country or anything like that, but I am saying that it worked out last time when Ohio State got an NFL coordinator to come to their school, and I think it might just work out again.